Hello Flash fans, I'm Mel and I'm here today with this video to recap Season 1 Episode 19 titled Who is Harrison Wells of The Flash, which aired April 21st, 2015. Yet before we begin this recap, here's the release synopsis of today's episode. And we have Joe and Cisco head to Starling City to continue their investigation of Dr. Wells. While in town, the duo enlists the help of Captain Lance, and Cisco meets the Black Canary, aka Laurel Lance, who asks him for a favor. Meanwhile, back in Central City, Barry races to catch a metahuman named Hannibal Bates, who can transform himself into every person he touches, which includes Eddie, Iris, Caitlin, and even the Flash. So my initial thoughts about reading that synopsis are the teased Barry and Caitlin kiss, which I was so excited for. I think one of them is this shape-shifting metahuman, and I hate to say it, but it seems like that. Also, the promo that has Eddie shooting up a couple people, possibly cops, I think that's the shapeshifter as well. But this shapeshifter is definitely going to cause problems. And aside from that problem in Central City, I am just stoked that we get another semi-crossover with Captain Lance and Laurel Lance appearing in this episode to help Joe and Cisco. And from the looks of it, they're looking into the car accident that killed, I believe it was Dr. Wells' fiance. 15 years ago, and they go across to that bridge, and I believe they find Dr. Wells, the real Dr. Wells' body. Don't know what that's going to tell them about who this Wells guy they were dealing with now, even though as viewers we know it's Earbark Thong. Don't know how they're going to make the jump from that when the guy's from the future. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm just excited to see how this goes. And in regards to this recap episode, my second time doing this, but it's my first time recapping The Flash, so I think it might be shorter than the first video I did for the original, so bear with me. But without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the episode starts off with the sneak peek that the CW actually released that takes place at Joe's place, and it basically seems like a team meeting that consists of Barry, Joe, Cisco, Caitlin, and Eddie, and they're there to talk about what their next step is when it comes to this Dr. Wells mystery. And it is announced that Joe and Cisco are going to go to Starling City and look into the car accident case that Dr. Wells was involved 15 years ago, where his fiancée Tessa was killed. But Caitlin is hesitant to believe that Dr. Wells is the reverse Flash. Barry believes that she's with them, but Caitlin is showing that she's not sure. So there's that hesitance there from Caitlin. So with that plan in mind, we also have the city being struck by many different robberies. All seem to be done by innocent people, yet security footage catches them out of the blue. So initially, as cops, they should realize that if a criminal is looking fully at a security camera and does nothing to destroy it or to hide their identity from the camera, then there's got to be something up with those criminals, because I mean, any criminal would want to pull off a crime without getting caught, right? And yet this one seems like he wants to get caught. So there's food for thought right there. But in this one, because Joe and Cisco are going to Starling City, this police work has to be done by Eddie and Barry partnering up more so than usual. So that's quite interesting to see. And when they first get the case about it, Iris even shows up and asks where Joe went since he's not home, and yet he requested a few days off from work. But then Eddie lies to her again, saying that he doesn't know where Joe went, which irritates Iris even more. And Eddie senses this, and he even says, I quote, "I'm sorry, when are you coming home?" And she says when it starts feeling like home again, because she hasn't been back to their place in a while. She's been living back at her dad's place for a few days. So Barry's there still with the tension. So there's obviously that slight rift between Eddie and Iris, because Eddie knows that Barry's a Flash and he wants to tell Iris, but he's being told not to. So anyways, after that we have Barry trying to convince Caitlin to trust their plan, to trust that what they found out about Dr. Wells is true. But Caitlin's not buying it. She even says, and I quote, "The truth is he saved your life multiple times," in regards to Dr. Wells. And while that's true, before Barry could even argue that fact, Dr. Wells interrupts with questions about where Cisco is. And luckily, Caitlin does cover for Cisco, saying that he's dealing with some stuff with his brother for a few days. And then with that interruption, Barry brings up the fact that there's a possible metahuman behind all the robberies, and Dr. Wells is easy to lend a helping hand. So then we get back to the Barry and Eddie team up when they have a lead on the robbery, and in their quest to confront this one, they've discovered, or Barry discovers as the Flash, that this metahuman can shapeshift. They can shapeshift, which is something that's completely new to Barry, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. So when Barry tells the news back at Star Labs, he is then told that he is to not touch the metahuman, because they are not sure if the metahuman can copy more than just a person's face. So, and then they go on with the lead that from Barry, that they should look at all the robberies that have claimed to have innocent people saying they didn't rob whatever they're being accused of, and it leads them to the first case the shifter ever was connected to, which was done by a Hannibal Bates is the name. So with that lead, Barry takes that to Eddie. And then back in Starling City, we have Joe and Cisco meeting with Captain Quentin Lance of the Starling City Police Department. And it's kind of interesting to see Lance and Joe together, because there's so many similarities between them. They're both fathers with daughters that seem to be somewhat associated with the heroes of their city. But aside from that, Lance gives him a folder of the car accident that Wells was in, and even says, and I quote, you come all this way from Central City and you don't know what you're looking for," because they're very vague in what they were trying to find, which is understandable. And then Laurel Lance interrupts, and she gets her introductions, and when she recognizes Cisco's name, she wants to talk to him. So she takes him aside. She admits that she's a Black Canary, and that she knows that Barry's the Flash, and that Oliver is the Arrow. And Cisco completely fanboys out on Laurel because of the whole Black Canary confession. But then once he gets over that, he's wondering why she wants to talk to him, and she brings out one of Sarah's sonic devices, and she wants Cisco to modify it for her. And he accepts. And then back in Central City, we have Barry stopping Caitlin before she goes and confronts Dr. Wells about all these accusations people are throwing at her, and he practically begs her to hold off until Cisco and Joe get back from Starling City. She agrees, even though she doesn't want to see the man's life ruined in regards to Terrence Wells. She even confesses the fact that Dr. Wells was there for Caitlin during those 9 months after the particle accelerator exploded. A time where Barry was in a coma, a time where she just lost her fiance, and her reputation had been shot because of her association with Star Labs, and yet Dr. Wells was there for her, so she's reluctant to turn her back on this man, which is understandable. But Barry tells her to hold off to keep all her questions from Dr. Wells just for a bit longer. She even pulled the dad card on him, or he even pulled the dad card on her because he believes that Dr. Wells killed his mother, which means that his father is being framed. So with that being said, we're back to Eddie and Barry looking into the Hannibal Bates lead, and eventually during that trip they find out that Hannibal was actually masquerading as his grandmother, Shipson's grandmother, and a chase is starting. And then during that chase, the shifter, Hannibal, I'm just going to call him Shifter, it keeps things straight. The shifter, during this chase, actually takes the form of Eddie and uses it to shoot at 2 cops. Now, I can't tell if he shoots them to the point that they can go to the hospital or if he kills the 2 cops, but he does it with Eddie's face, and it's caught on the dash cam video. So that has Eddie's case in an uproar when it comes to Captain Singh trying to defend him against the district attorney who wants to lock Eddie away. But Barry is not having it. He's trying to figure out a way to clear Eddie's name without so much as revealing the fact that it's a shapeshifter who is doing all these robberies. So when it comes to the district attorney, Barry finally has forensics evidence stating that Eddie didn't shoot the gun, so he's cleared on that charge, but the DA's hands are tied when it comes to Eddie, which with this news, it upsets Barry because for some reason he wants to protect Eddie, which I found this pretty odd because I would think that Eddie and Barry were kind of had like a tense dynamic because of Iris, essentially. But Barry's even willing to hide Eddie from the police force until they can clear his name. But Eddie gives this really great motivational speech about how Barry's the Flash, and that if anyone can get him out of this metahuman drama, it would be Barry. And so Barry returns back to the police station, and Eddie even says, "Get me out of here the proper way, or the right way," which I thought was kind of good because it has Eddie showing so much faith in Barry, which I really like. So back in Starling City, we have Cisco, Joe, and Captain Lance arriving at the bridge where the accident happened. So Cisco takes out one of his modified metal detectors and goes start searching, and Captain Lance is even amused by Cisco's enthusiasm over his device. He even goes and says to Joe, "Where'd you find this kid?" And it was in a very jolly manner. So as they wait for Cisco to do their thing, Lance and Joe bond over the fact that they have daughters that are kind of very close to the field they're in, with Laurel being a district attorney and Iris not only dating a cop but being a news reporter. So they always talk about that, and the fact that there's a rift between Lance and Laurel comes up over secrets. Joe actually says, in a quote, "Sometimes we lie for love, especially for family." And just before Lance could really respond, Cisco declares that he's found the spot. He's found something. And it's the particle that has to do with the future. And one question about whether it was the right place, Lance's coffee is actually floating out of its cup. So it's a good indicator that they're on the right track. So with them busy digging up the hot spot, we have Barry having another encounter with the shifter in his own home. Barry unknowingly gets knocked out by the shifter when he takes the form of Eddie again, and when Barry's knocked out, the shifter takes Barry's form. And it seems like unlike the shapeshifters on Supernatural, who not only take the physical shape of their target, they also take the memory with them as well. The shifter that is Hannibal Bates only takes on their face. They don't take the memories of the people they copy. And it is obvious when he even does a side comment on the fact that he doesn't even know who Iris is after he knocked Barry out, which would seem odd if he was able to get Eddie's memories because Iris is his girlfriend. So that little side comment was a good indicator of the fact that Hannibal isn't able to gain the memories of the people he copies. So with Barry tied up, that leads the shifter to become Barry for the time being, and with that he encounters Caitlin, who has news that she has found a way to temporarily stop the shifter from changing faces. And the shifter is trying not to be cautious about this, but it's obvious that he's worried, but only because we're looking for it. And then even when Caitlin made a side note about alluding to last night, which from an outsider it might sound like the fact that Barry and Caitlin were a lot more to one another, when really it was Caitlin talking about Barry stopping her from going to see Dr. Wells. So I thought that was funny in a sense. So then when we get Caitlin back at the lab and she's trying to prepare the serum for the shifter, and the shifter actually gets a little closer than usual to Caitlin, and he actually kisses her. And I've got to wonder if because for a moment there it kind of looked like Caitlin was getting into the kiss near the end, but that could have been me just looking for something that's not really there. But I thought that was, at least it proved my prediction, the fact that that kiss was not between the real Barry and Caitlin. But with that, shortly after that, Caitlin tries to keep her distance, and luckily Iris arrives with news, or a theory perhaps, of Eddie being framed for murder. And she made a great discovery of the fact that the Eddie in the dash cam footage was actually left-handed, while her boyfriend Eddie is right-handed. And just when the shifter is about to pull out a gun, he is tased from behind by Dr. Wells, who reveals that not only is Iris right, but that the man he just tased was not their Barry. He even said, "Our Barry is right-handed," when the gun that in the shifter's hand is in his left hand. So with that, Iris is completely shocked to the fact that there's a fake Barry when there used to be a fake Eddie. So she wants to take him to the police force to get Eddie cleared. Dr. Wells tries to refuse, but Caitlin offers to go with Iris instead. Already, I'm thinking this is a bad idea. They could have easily put the shifter into the pipeline. Therefore, he's at least detained, and that could have probably been the easiest capture without the Flash ever. But anyways, back to Starling City, we have Lance, Cisco, and Joe finding a decayed body. And Joe convinces Lance not to call it in because he believes that whoever this body belongs to, whoever finds out about it, is going to be in very deep trouble. So Lance reluctantly agrees when Joe brings up the daughter card. Understandable. So when we go back to Central City, we have Iris and Caitlin trying to transport the shifter, only to be thwarted when he poses as a little girl claiming to be kidnapped. And because of some very good Samaritan construction workers, they come and check it out, they let the girl go, and she takes off. Not really the best moment for them, but they can't really do anything about it. So the next time we see Caitlin is when she is rescuing Barry, and she rescues Barry from being taped up in the closet by slapping him, and he wakes up saying, "For real? Why did you slap me?" He even mentioned that smelling salts would have done the trick too. But she instantly she recaps him on the fact that the shifter is loose when posing as him, and that she has serum ready, so Barry's ready to face this guy. And then we go back to Starling City, and it's Joe and Cisco getting everything packed up, getting ready to go back home. And Joe and Lance even talk about being detectives for a bit. And Laurel comes back, and she gets her little upgrade, sonic upgrade from Cisco, and it looks like a necklace or some choker of some kind, and he says, "I think you should call it Canary Cry," which is actually clever. And so she thanks him, and she even gives him an envelope, and I'm thinking it's some documents of some kind, but it turns out it's a fan photo of Cisco with Laurel in the Black Canary outfit. It's like one of those photos. It's like a convention photo, except with the actress. He got the actual vigilante wear, and I thought that was cute. Okay, so back at Star Labs, we have Barry, Dr. Wells, and Caitlin revising their plan to take down the shifter. And they have learned now that Barry can actually touch the shifter because he doesn't absorb any powers that he comes with, because he shifts so often. He can only retain the physical form. He can't take anything else, which is why he can't take the memories of whoever he copies. So Barry's excited for that. He can actually do something against this metahuman. So they have him pinged at an airport, where Barry goes and fights the shifter, who shifts into Caitlin, Iris, and Eddie as Barry punches him out as a Flash. He even takes the form of the Flash at one point, but thankfully, as they predicted, the shifter cannot copy the speed that comes with being the Flash. And Barry even says, "You may look like me, but you're not as fast." He does a lot more punches before he injects him with the stabilizing serum. And as it takes effect, the shifter shifts back into many of the forms he'd taken over: Iris, Eddie, Caitlin, uncontrollably, until he collapses, and he collapses in the form of Iris. So then, with that said, the fight actually got caught on the security footage, and that was shown to the DA, who then saw the shifter actually shifting into Iris, Caitlin, and Eddie when the serum was ejected. So that allowed for Eddie to be released, all charges dropped, and he reunites with Iris. And with that reunion, he actually confesses to her that he's been working with the Flash. Thankfully, he didn't admit who the Flash was, like I thought he might have, but saying that he was working with the Flash was enough, which it completely stuns her. So the shifter is now in the pipeline, and he actually shifts into his original form, and it's kind of sad of the fact that he can't remember what he used to look like. So he practically has no face, really. He just has like the basic nose structure, basic mouth, but he practically has no eyes, no hair. He's like a blank slate, and I thought that was pretty sad. But with that said, after that, Barry takes Caitlin to his lab back at the police station, where Cisco and Joe are with the remains of the real Harrison Wells that they had dug up from Starling City. Cisco did a blood match for the body to Harrison Wells, and it was a perfect match. And Caitlin is stunned by it. And rightfully so. It's like they have absolute proof of the fact that the man that they've been working with all this long is not the man who they thought he was. Not even the fact that it's the guy with the secret, but it was a completely different man. But now I'm wondering, if when Eobard Thawne took the form of Harrison Wells, did he only take the form of Harrison Wells, or did he take his memories, his brain, his intelligence with him? Because I'm curious about that too. But it's a different form of being a shapeshifter. So, there's another final scene between Joe and Dr. Wells, and it's a little tense. Starling City's brought up. Grieving over a loved one is brought up. Wanting to get drinks afterwards is brought up. But I definitely sense some tension. Some, does he know, does he not know? It's very worrisome, as it was one of the final scenes. And then we get the flash credit at the end, but then the very final scene includes Cisco, Caitlin, and Barry, and they find Dr. Wells's secret hideaway that holds Gideon and his reverse flash suit. And not only do they find that, but they find the article dated for April 25th, 2024 that states that Barry is still missing. And Cisco sums it up pretty good with the quote, "What the frack?" So with that, they can come away with the knowledge of the fact that this fake Wells is from the future, and sometime in the future, Barry disappears. Now this is going into my thoughts and observations of the episode, but I just wanted to bring it up while it's still in my mind. But while it's obvious that Eobard Thawne has been unable to go back to the future, what happened to the future Barry? I mean, according to the article, future Barry is missing. Is it possible that future Barry is stuck in the present day to the point that there are two Barry Allens running around? Like, is that possible? Could they have two people of the same thing together? Because I think if the future Barry is missing in 2024, then it's possible that that's when he time traveled to the night that Nora Allen was killed, but yet he hasn't returned. If what we're supposed to believe with the article is that it's possible that the future Barry never returned to the future. So is it possible that he is walking around in the present day, maybe even shadowing his past present Barry to make sure everything's going okay? I mean, is that a possibility? I'm not familiar with the comics, but if you guys have some theories about it in the comments, please leave them. I'd love to hear about it, because it just keeps blowing my mind away, the fact that they're with this whole time traveling thing. No matter what TV show includes time travel, it's always going to be confusing. So it'd be great to get some thoughts on what actually applies to this version of the time travel. So overall thoughts on the episode is, I thought it was great. I love the Starling City segments, not only because we get to see Arrow characters, but also we get to see Joe and Cisco working together again. It's always great to have that type of pair up, but because of that pair up, we also got to see Barry and Eddie teaming up, and just seeing that dynamic together was very interesting, because it even seems that is it safe to say that they've become friends? Or is Iris not an issue between them anymore? I don't know, but it was great to see in this episode. It was even great, especially when Barry tried to hide Eddie from the police force, and Eddie actually says, where is it? My notes are crazy, so hold on. Yeah, when Eddie actually says that you're the Flash sign, I thought I wrote more of that quote down, but I didn't. I thought that moment was great. And then the Barry and Caitlin scenes, even though it was the shifter who kissed her, it was great to just see that it was Barry and Caitlin kissing, and she definitely looked shocked. But I could have sworn that she kind of put her own she kind of went all in too, but it was funny the fact. I wonder if she's actually going to tell Barry what the shifter did as him. Like, is she going to tell him about the kiss? Because I know for afterwards she actually stopped him from hugging her. She even said in a quote, "No need for a hug or anything like that." So I hope the shifter didn't push back Barry and Caitlin at all. That'd be a bummer to have that one kiss and then to have them go 3 steps back. You know what I mean? So there's that. But the Starling City stuff has definitely pushed the story forward in regards to who Wells is, or not Wells. I guess now the question is, when will they find out that it's Earborg Thong? Who knows? Can't wait. But let's go to predictions. And first off, predictions for the following episode can only be made off of the promos and off of the released synopsis that they gave, which is Barry and Caitlin and Cisco and Joe set a trap for Wells. Cisco uses himself as prey, which puts him in grave danger. Meanwhile, Eddie makes a decision regarding Iris, which leaves Joe a bit unsettled. And that is for the episode called The Trap, episode 20 of the season. And going off of that, and then going off of the promo that was seen, Cisco creates a device from the looks of it that has him going into a virtual reality, but the virtual reality seems to be the first timeline where Earborg Thong actually killed Cisco before Barry went back in time. And I don't even know how that is even possible, but something goes wrong during that, which I'm assuming is what puts Cisco in grave danger. But it's going to be hectic. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. And in regards to Eddie and Iris, either Eddie tells Iris that Barry's the Flash, which could unsettle Joe, or Eddie proposes to Iris, which could also unsettle Joe on some level. It's hard to determine because they're already living together, so who knows. But I believe that is all that I have for the episode prediction. But in regards to the rest of season 1, I have no clue what could happen. It's such a fast pace. And from what I can hear, the Reverse Flash is supposed to be the ultimate villain for the Flash. So I really can't see them eliminating him in the finale, but I don't know how they could drag it out into season 2, because I would think that if they found out, then the Reverse Flash is not really going to be too happy about it, and he might retaliate in a gruesome way. Who knows? I have no clue. But I'm excited to see what the last 3 episodes, episode 20, 21, and 22, and 23, I believe, have in store for us. So I hope this recap was shorter than the first one I did. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I'll leave a comment down below. And if you have any questions, or if you can clarify anything for me in regards to time travel, leave a comment down below. If you have any theories you want to share, if you have any general thoughts, if you want to tell me who you ship, who you don't ship, are you a Snowberry fan, or are you a Barry Iris fan, or do you want Eddie and Iris? I don't know. Just let me know in a comment below, and I'll get to them somehow. I have no clue what I'm going to do for the next episode, but I'm learning as I go along. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for putting up with my ramblings, but greatly appreciated. Hopefully I get better as I do more of these. So until the next time, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.